but at least we'll be able to have a good chat to you. What I was going to ask people to do was to, which you needn't do, is to activate the chat box and just write in there the name of their dog, the age, the breed, which will be interesting, and just a little bit about what it is the dog guards. So how about, let's talk to you first, okay? So what sort of dog is it you have, Victoria?
So I've got 3 dogs.
Okay. What about the one which guards, though? You've got one
guard is a German Shepherd.
Right, okay. And how old?
He's about 2 years old now.
And what's his name?
Dexter.
So Dexter's about 2. And what is it that he guards?
Well, when we first got him, it was anything and everything. So he's a rescue, so he would even guard a leaf or a piece of fluff. But now it's more high value items, so things like food or his more favoured toys.
You've done well, haven't you? How long have you had him for?
Had him about a year now.
I reckon you've done really well. Definitely. I mean, it's terrible when it's as extreme as that, isn't it, for her?
Yeah.
Really. How did you achieve that?
Well, a lot of it, he deals quite badly with any kind of pressure. So a lot of the time, the first thing was management. So taking away or not allowing him access to anything that he wasn't allowed to have. So to avoid the whole confrontation or, you know, even just
he knew he might guard, you removed it.
Yeah. Especially if it was something that he wasn't allowed. You know, you don't want that mad rush to try and, I don't know, take something off him that he shouldn't have. So that was all taken away. And then a lot of it was around guarding from the other dogs. So he was not segregated from them, but if anything was out and the other dogs were out with him, nothing that they could potentially guard was out. And then over time, we reintroduced things that were quite what I would have assumed that were lower value. So they weren't toys and they weren't food. So the things like leaves, bits of fluff, socks, stuff like that, reintroduced them slowly, but we did things around them. So we did a bit of counter conditioning with it. We also did, you know, playing games with things, and also not trying to take things off him was a really
if it was just things which had no value, you could completely ignore it anyway, couldn't you? So
exactly, it didn't matter, and that's what I mean. If you put pressure on him, like even still now, if he has something and you walk toward him directly, you can see he feels uncomfortable. So a lot of it was about just taking away the stuff that he couldn't have, so that he couldn't get himself into trouble by having it.
Tell me something. Did he guard from both people and from other dogs?
Yeah.
Because that's quite unusual, isn't it? I think that's very extreme, because I find, don't know about you, Freya, but I find that mostly it's either other dogs or people. It's not very often both.
No, I agree.
So that's really is extreme. So now you're at a stage where you'd like to, where have you got to, so that you want?
So we've taught him a trade. So he gets something, if I want something from him, he usually gets something of equal or higher value. He does a really good drop or out, which I'd say 9 times out of 10 now he will do. And he is okay with lower value toy items around the other dogs. Still not food, and still not higher value items. So for example, to him, the highest thing on his list is tennis balls, which is okay because he loves them, but so does my spaniel. So it's not that the spaniel guards them, he just kind of goes around spanieling and doesn't really realize and takes one, and then it'll upset Dexter. So we've got to the stage now where he's pretty much manageable. but he still doesn't like a direct approach. So if he's got something that he sees as sort of higher value and you approach him, he doesn't necessarily guard anymore, but he will get up and move away now. So there's not that growling or that sort of direct stare from him, but you can tell he's still not comfortable with it.
Right. You've done very well.
Yeah, I was just thinking that was ever so good, actually.
Really, because I think in a lot of dogs it's bred into them. I mean, especially some, I mean, he's a guarding breed to start with, isn't he? And I think they're genetically wired. I mean, in a way, in survival, it's necessary anyhow, isn't it?
Exactly.
So it's very difficult. You're trying to run against nature, really.
That's just what they've practiced, you know, it's all what they've practiced, and now they're practicing not guarding, so there's like they've got to get better at it with it, isn't they?
I'll bet you also that when he, with the breeder or whoever he was with, that all the puppies probably had one bowl to feed from, so they were already competing for the food, I would think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we're his 5th home at a year old. So he came with a lot of problems, and I remember the first time I went to see him at the shelter, he actually stole my scarf and wouldn't give it back.
You still took him.
Yeah. Yeah, he took it from me and then ran off with it and then wouldn't let me near him to go and get it. So he has come a long way.
Does he guard, is it always items? Does he guard people, or does he guard his space?
He doesn't guard people. He does get some form of barrier frustration, and whilst he was in his kennels, he was a kennel guarder. But since sort of, I'd say 6 months after having him, because he was allowed his own space, you know, the other dogs didn't go into his space, and we sort of set a precedent of him not directly going into his space. So he was allowed to come out of his space of his own free will, but unless we absolutely needed to, we didn't encroach on his.
So what about things like walking past his bed?
No, he's absolutely fine. He's fine with stuff like that now.
Fine, but it'd be better if you didn't stop and touch him. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So everybody has to be wised up to him, really.
Yeah, but he's not around when visitors are out.
Has he ever met anybody?
Yeah.
What, children?
No. I don't have children. We don't have children around when he's about. No, he's bitten myself a few times, and he's bitten in previous homes as well, but he does suffer from redirected aggression. So that was mainly in those circumstances, not around resource guarding.
Some of the biting and some of the general guarding is going to be when he's already hyped up about something else.
Absolutely.
So that's understandable, isn't it? So in a way, what you're doing, I'm sure, is to do your best to keep him calm. Because
absolutely.
And the other thing, isn't it, the whole thing about guarding, it's really fear, isn't it? It's fear of losing something.
Exactly, which is why we never, if he does have something, we sort of limited it to the things that he is allowed. It's not imperative that we take them away from him. He can have his toys and he can have his food. There was no reason for me to take that and then just clear everything else away that he can't have.
Yeah, I mean, I did you see that clip? I'm sure you did, Freya, with the Caesar Milan trying to show a golden Labrador who was eating his food. That was, he had the right to do that. This poor dog gave every warning, didn't it?
Yeah.
Caesar Milan said he was surprised when he got bitten.
Yeah, he got bitten really badly as well, didn't he?
Yeah, and it's not him right. But that's the sort of thing people do, don't they? They get their puppy and they put their hand in the bowl, so this puppy's got to get used to me touching his food because the children are about. And the whole thing actually makes the puppy more likely to bite if he's thinking, oh, well, if anybody comes near me, they're like to interfere with my food. I'm not having that. So when you, I'm really talking to you a lot here because you're the one.
That's okay.
Right, really, because you've got such an interesting one to talk about. Is he, say you feed him in a bowl, do you?
No, he's not fed from a bowl. No.
Is that because he's likely to guard the bowl?
No, I just use probably about 50% of his food throughout the day for training, and the other 50% for enrichment. So none of my dogs, unless I'm very stuck for time, get fed out of a bowl. So
That's
but
exactly
it
what
did
I
start
say
off
to
that way.
anybody who's dog guarded food was don't feed it in a bowl, because they end up by guarding the bowl.
Exactly. Yeah.
And tongs and things like that, they can end up guarding those as well.
Yes, yes. Does it? So when you what do you do? Scatter feed or what?
Yeah, scatter feed. He loves it. He loves it in the garden. If I throw his food out into the gardens, we've got a very big garden, and he'll sort of sniff it out. We play sort of hide and seek. We do. He likes cardboard boxes, so we do like a pass the parcel in cardboard boxes with like boxes in boxes in boxes with tissue paper, and he can just sit and rip that up. And he doesn't guard that, because once he's done with it, he's quite satisfied that he's got everything he needs from it. And when he's by himself and not around the other dogs, he'll have it in like Kongs and puzzle feeders and things like that.
And if you get up and walk past him, he doesn't go still.
No, not anymore. If I walk directly toward him though, so say there's something behind him that I want, he notices me very, very soon on, and he'll get up and move and take whatever that item is with him. Previously,
You
he
warn
was
him that you're
exactly
coming.
where he was. Pardon?
Presumably you try to warn him you're coming, do you?
Oh yeah. I usually say to him Dexter, or I curve towards him now. He's also reactive, so he struggles, and obviously being quite being a German Shepherd, he's very focused on things that are looking directly towards him or moving directly towards him. So I sort of approach him in a curved manner rather than go directly towards him if he's got something, and that's tended to work really. But again, we've kept him separate from the other dogs whilst he's doing that, because obviously if they're off their leads or they're out in the garden together and he's got something, he will still guard from them.
But they presumably learned to leave him alone.
Yes, yeah. So my Spaniel's older, he's 10, so he just completely avoids him pretty much, especially if he's got something. And my other dog's a Romanian rescue, and he is just exceptional at reading other dogs. And him and Dexter have never really had a problem with each other, because Harley just sees what signals Dexter's giving, and he just gives him a wide berth. He doesn't try and take anything from him. So.
Where did you learn all this?
I'm a trainer as well.
I thought you must be. We're all talking to the converted. So rare. I thought you must be. It's a shame we haven't got a few people. I'm really, really surprised, because normally when I do one of these, I have about, say, 8 people say they're going to come.
Yeah.
And about 5 turn up.
Yeah, I thought I saw it said 10, didn't it? It said 10
on both groups, and there were between them about a dozen people. So I'm really surprised that more people haven't turned up.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Because I put it on both groups because it wasn't quite such a common topic as. I don't know if you find this, but that when I get a phone call from somebody with a spaniel, especially a cocker spaniel, 9 times out of 10 it's resource guarding.
Yeah.
Excess barking at the door, I find I've had a lot of cocker spaniels doing lately as well.
Very, very noisy, aren't they? Very volatile. Yeah. But your spaniel isn't the guarder, is it, Victoria?
No, he's here.
Oh look.
He's a model dog, actually. He's a very good boy. Don't have any problems with him. He's the golden child.
Spaniel. He doesn't guard things. He takes things. He loves to take things he shouldn't have, and he'll parade them. But he wants you to take them. He wants you to have them. He doesn't. Yeah. He's got no instinct at all for not to have it, fortunately. But he really does like to take something he knows that you don't want him to have. And he literally walks around. Look what I've got. Look.
I must say, Rio does love to parade. He will parade with his stuffed toys and his balls, and he does like to parade around the house and a parade around the garden for sure. But he's 11 now, so when he was a puppy, he would take all sorts of stuff and parade with it. But
Pickle's 10, and he still does it.
Yeah.
But so it's a different way altogether than the German Shepherd. I've got a German Shepherd as well. Fortunately, she doesn't guard things, but I think I've got 4 dogs, and my other bitch is a Labrador. If there's a bit of food or something about and the Labrador's nearby, she might snap at her. Just at this one little dog, just the female.
In our house, Moo will guard his food from the cat, and he guards me from the kids. So he won't bite them or anything, but you can see him getting in the middle. You know what I mean? He won't, like, you know, he won't, but you can feel it. If they come over and sit near me, you can feel him go a bit rigid, and he won't actually hurt them. He'll start giving them kisses and things like that instead, but you can feel him trying to slot himself right in the middle there.
I have to say, Pickles likes to be on me or near me. If one of the other dogs comes up, he always gets in between.
Yeah. So I've got no worries about him on that front, really.
Like, not got aggression in it. It's just always
to anyone, but you can just see he's a little bit concerned about it sometimes, you know.
What happens in your household then, Victoria? Are you Vicky or Victoria?
I'm Victoria, or Vic.
So what happens in your household? Do you have one of your dogs who sort of splits you up away from?
No, I don't actually. So strangely, we do almost like a crate and rotate system. So Dexter, for example, is never out with the other dogs when we're not around. But when we are, they're all very good at staying in their own zones. So if they're all in the living room, that we've done a lot of mat training and things with them, and they'll stay in their zone. In the mornings, it's quite funny. The spaniel and my Romanian rescue will both come up for a cuddle, and if I'm sat drinking my coffee in the morning, and they did used to jostle for position, and but then they realised that if they sat on either side of me, they both got a stroke. So that's stopped.
Dexter's happy with that, is he?
He's fine because he's not out he wouldn't necessarily be out at the same time, but he is not an affectionate dog. He would much rather be away from you than be near you, so he wouldn't necessarily try and push the other two out of the way for attention. If I had food, he might be around me a bit more, but again, because I'm the one with the food, he's not trying to guard it. He doesn't have a go at the other dogs.
But because you work so hard at the way you feed him, I mean, you're not lazy. You don't just put the food down and walk out.
No.
You do that with all the dogs. How do you manage to do it, with all of them?
I'm very lucky that I have a very big house and I have a very big garden, and I have put like crowd control fencing. I've got that up around my garden so I can have different dogs in different sections of the garden at different times, and each dog we live in a bungalow, and each dog has their own room. And we can do those exercises in those rooms, and like at the moment, my spaniel's the only one who's out. The other two are in their rooms or in their crates, having a bit of chill time.
I've also got them so they're happy to be left when they know that there's action going on somewhere else, but you can leave them in the room. You've done so well, haven't you? I mean, I know you're a trainer. It sounds really patronising having said, "Oh, you've done well, haven't you?" But I'm not great on actual training itself, really, I'm afraid. Or, there's sort of various levels of this, isn't there? I mean, I think a lot of the things that dogs do, it's very like with the resource guarding, really. People always are trying to deal with the actual symptoms rather than the cause. So what I do, I tend to think as a behaviourist, I try to deal with the cause.
Yes.
Training itself, there's so many things people do, and they're so incredibly clever, I can't do them. But it's not that I try to do, but you seem to have done a mixture with your dogs. You've done it both.
I've tried quite hard to, Rio my spaniel, I've had him since a puppy, and he was just a typical spaniel. You know, he was a bit of a pain and a little bit naughty, but there was nothing behaviorally wrong with him. He's just always been a bit you know, his favorite thing was to chase birds when he was a puppy, and then I took him gun dog training, but it was positive gun dog training, which was very interesting.
Where do you live?
I live in Herefordshire.
All right, okay. We've got a very good positive gun dog trainer around here, and it's really great.
It's just nice to see, isn't it? Because typically they're not the most positive of positive ways of training. So that changed.
You've got that lady who does the positive gun dog displays at Crufts, haven't you?
That's it. Yeah. She's not far from me. Where I lived at the time was in South Gloucestershire. When he was younger. But we sort of homed in on his spanielness rather than trying to stop him from chasing birds and, you know, going off in bushes and things like that. We trained him to do it rather than him going off and doing it because he fancied it. And that made a huge amount of difference. And, you know, he's been great ever since. But my next two dogs that I then got came with a lot of behavioural issues because they were rescues. So I tried to take different approaches with them. I've learned an awful lot, even though I'm a trainer. I've learned an awful lot actually living day to day with dogs like it, you know.
I think, you know, people, they have to do that. You've got to be able to apply the stuff you learn as you go along. And also, things would never occur to you, would they, unless you'd had, and you've had such a variety of problems that, oh, it's fantastic. I really wanted somebody here as well whose dog guarded their food.
Yes.
Mine will guard from the cat, but it doesn't guard from people though. He'll guard his food from the cat.
From the cat. That is sort of more usual, isn't it? Not from people, but from another dog or another animal.
Yeah. But he actually, what he does is if I put food out for him, sometimes he'll eat it straight away. And as you know, he's got like gastric issues, hasn't he? So sometimes he's not terribly interested in his food. But what he'll do is like he'll get to the point where he's so worried watching the cat at the other side of the room sound asleep that he won't eat it. Does that make sense? Like, he won't eat it in case the cat comes over, because like you can't look at the cat and eat his food at the same time.
A little bit of him wanting the cat to wake up and challenge him, isn't there? I'm sure.
Yeah, sometimes he does always look pleased with himself afterwards, I must say. The best thing we've done is just made escape route for the cat. We stuck her a stool by the window so she could just hop up and out of the way quickly, because half the time she don't care, but then half the time she is eyeing his food up, in all fairness. So
I have to say I don't give mine the chance, because I've got Pickle who eats so fast you can't even see it. I'm having his in a bowl. I often sprinkle it, but if I give them meals, I shut him in a large crate because he's going to finish first. Then he's going to move straight in on the German Shepherds. She's not going to like it, and he is immune. So I feed them sort of separately, just so they can eat in peace.
Yeah.
No, I feed him. Sometimes he has a bowl, other times, because we do ditch the bowl as well. So sometimes he has a bowl, and sometimes he scatter feeds, and sometimes it'll be training, and it'll be all different things. You know what I mean? But you know, quite often he'll go to eat it, and he'll have a look around, and if the cat's there, then he'll oh no, I can't, and he'll just sit there looking at the bowl and looking at the cat like.
If the cat came over, would he back off?
No, oh no.
Sounds like he's challenging how he'd like her to come over.
No, the funny thing is though, he'll sit there and he'll guard his bowl, and it's almost like he can't eat it in case the cat comes over and he misses it. Do you know what I mean? But then if she's in front of the door, like asleep or something like that, curled up in front, he won't walk past her. Because like in any other situation, he's really wary in case she's going to get him. But as soon as the food bowl or anything like that's down there, he'll sit there and he'll still be on pins watching to see if she's coming over or anything. But at the same time, you know, he gets himself to a point where he won't eat it, and you just think, well, if you just eat it, solve the problem.
He has trouble eating anyway. You have trouble.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
I mean, my dogs, none of them. You They anything they see, they eat.
Yeah, no, so he'll happily go 2 or 3 days without eating sometimes, and then he'll have a few days where he's really piling it in, and then he goes,
Cats, I mean, a cat can stop a dog coming through the doorway by just staring at it, can't it?
Yeah, so all she has to do is sleep in the doorway, and I think she does it on purpose sometimes.
Of course she does. I sometimes scatter feed all mine at once, and then never have quarrels out of them ever then. I think when they're small things they can eat immediately. I think it's when you've got one item which can't be consumed. But they love to go on a group hunt for a meal.
Yeah, so we'll do that down the garden sometimes. He likes going finding the stuff, and then he won't eat it. He just likes finding it. It's like, he's a funny little thing. But he doesn't mind the cat eating stuff down the garden too much, as long as she's not too close to him. So they can usually manage it out there. But
I'm recording this, and I don't really think that if several people had come, I'd do it. But just for the sake of the recording, shall we just have a little chat about dogs that do guard food and do say it's mostly puppies. An awful lot of what we have are puppies, and a lot of them, I'm sure a lot of people who would have been here, they're people who've got puppies who've started to growl when someone comes near the food. And so I'm just so surprised how many people think that they've got to cure the puppy of this by forcing themselves onto the puppy's food. And another thing is that the puppy steals things and runs off. And so what they do, they pursue the puppy and corner it. Puppy's obviously a little bit scared and then is not going to give the thing up. So they're basically teaching the puppy to do a very scary game of pinch something. And then, of course, as a dog gets bigger, as soon as there's any confrontation, then they're asking for aggression in response. So that is, so have you got something to say about that, Vic? That might be quite cute.
Absolutely. It was, I think, it's a very good point, actually, because like you say, we do often see it start in puppyhood. And I've spoken to a couple of Dexter's previous owners, and it would seem that they had tried to do exactly what we were just speaking about. And, it's a lesson for us all because it only made him worse. Chasing him, which is also why now you still walk towards him and he does still run off, and trying to take his food off him will only make the dog fight harder to keep hold of it. They're scared of losing it. If someone's going to take it, they're going to try harder to not let you have it.
You're proving it right, aren't you?
You are, yeah. Yes, one of the things I say to people, I have a list of things. I do this puppy parenting thing. And one of the things right from the word go is give and take.
Yeah.
And also playing tuggy in such a way it's give, take, let go, take it, let go. And so that you all the time, it's all to do with, and often also when the puppy's got something which it doesn't particularly want, or just a toy or anything, to get them to give it to you, admire it, love it and give it back. So that just because you want something, it doesn't necessarily mean the puppy's going to lose it.
I often play things with 2 toys as well. So we play the switch game. So you play with like a tuggy on one side and then a tuggy on the other, and they have to hop between the 2 sides. Or you play with 2 balls, so they bring one back and drop it, and then you throw another one. Or you do the same with frisbees and things like that. So they drop something that they want, and then they get something that they want.
That's right. What I do with the ball one is, a lot of people, what they do is throw the second ball before the dogs drop the first one. Well, that isn't the one. So I get 2 identical things, so it doesn't prefer one to the other. And once you've thrown one, then you start talking to the one you've got. You're loving it. You're saying, "This is better than yours. This is mine." And then the puppy then it'll drop it.
Well, I'd love to see that, actually.
It's really good fun, you really dramatise it, and really, the puppy doesn't want it, wants that one. They usually want them both, really, don't they?
But you try doing it with different household items as well. So you teach them to switch with like tuggies and things, but then you can switch with a tea towel, and then you can switch with whatever they've got over there, and then you can switch with the letters that they just stole from the postman, and you keep doing it.
It's always to exchange something. It's always a bit of an adventure because they don't know quite what they're going to get.
Yeah.
I suppose that's one way of doing it. I mean, one is always switch, as you were saying, Vic, was for something of equal value or better value. Another thing is like varying rewards, is like switch for something you don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the game is about the switching rather than the thing that they end up. And half the time, I let them end up with the thing that they wanted in the first place as well.
Yeah.
You know, so they don't lose from it. You know.
I think the whole thing is people being givers and not takers. I mean, one thing that along the line of the food resource guarding is that you know, so many dogs, when anybody goes anywhere near their food, they freeze. And you know, it's a question really of how you get the dog to relax when people are near the food. And I can't believe how many people put the food bowl in a thoroughfare where people are going past nearby, or they've got children nearby. And they seem to think it's defeat if you ask them, if you say to them, well, look, put the food bowl right out the way, even behind a gate, so that puppy or the dog is left alone. But they think that's giving in somehow. But I think
it's so simple.
it is. Well, I think if they hadn't, if they had a very small house and nowhere to put it, the only thing they can do is make quite sure that if people have to walk past, they drop something in on the way past, a bit of cheese or chicken, but don't hover.
Yeah.
Keep on the move. It's not like.
The problem is the cat will actively go and look for wherever he is, because she does actually want what's in the bowl. You see, so if there's anything that, like, you know, it doesn't matter where we put it, because the same thing will happen. So a lot of the time, the management technique is just to remove the cat. You know.
Wouldn't you hurt the cat?
No, he's chased her and he catches her, but he doesn't actually bite, if that makes sense. He literally he'll put his mouth to her and he'll push her out the way, but he doesn't sink his teeth in. Right. So he could if he wanted to, I think, but I don't think he actually would. But she'll hurt him every so often. She'll get him a good one with her claws, you know. Well,
they could probably.
A lot of the time, the easiest thing to do for us is just to remove the cat. You know, so if we pick her up and pop her out of the way, then she'll go off and do whatever herself. But you know,
she probably really enjoys winding him up.
Yeah, I think that's half what it is.
Well, I think we've sort of exhausted it. Do you think there's any things, for the sake of the video? I'm not going to actually put it out on a group, but one person couldn't come because she had to take a dog to the vet, and I promised her to do the recording. But I think actually it's probably quite useful. It's rather been a bit more like a talk, hasn't it, rather than a. But is there anything for the sake of the video that might be useful to discuss that you can think of with resource guarding?
Behaviour. When one of the kids come and sits with me, and Moo jumps up in the middle, and he'll be all waggy and happy and kissy and everything, but he's very firmly in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Is that? I mean, what can I do about that?
Push him off.
Yeah, don't allow it.
I push
I don't
people
know if
off.
that'd make it worse, actually. So, well, the best thing I can do really usually is just get up and walk away.
Yes. It's a bit more effort though, isn't it? Oh yes. The other one we haven't done, isn't it, is resource guarding when the dog literally takes ownership of a person. I mean, I've been to people where the dog will not let them go more than about 3 feet.
Oh wow.
Near each other, you know, and if they so much as touch each other or hug, the dog goes absolutely mental. He thinks they're going to kill each other, or one's going to kill the one he's guarding. So that is something I have been to quite a lot. And normally I do that with sort of counter conditioning, starting at a distance and walking near each other all the time, chucking food for the dog. And you know, it's quite an easy one to solve really, because people don't ever push beyond what the dog can cope with. And
what would you do with a dog that wasn't foodie?
You'd have to do it with a toy, wouldn't you? You could probably play tug and cuddle at the same time, couldn't you?
Yeah, true.
Throw a ball, maybe. But I think the thing is to always keep under the dog's threshold. I mean, on occasions that we've done that, it's been quite a simple one to solve really, and the people can end up by cuddling. I think I say to people, dogs don't understand hugging. The nearest they've got is humping. And obviously, well, that's often one trying to control the other in a way, isn't it? It's not, or when they're really over aroused, it's not necessarily sex. It could be pending trouble, couldn't it? Yeah. And so I think that's what the dogs don't. Do you think there's anything else, just in general terms, along the guarding line we could put into this?
What about boundaries, like around the house, like fences and things?
Oh, right. Well, that's guarding from outsiders, isn't it?
Mm.
Yes, that's the thing, isn't it? Usually starts off, doesn't it, with the barking at people they can see walking past out the window, very successfully driving them away.
100% right.
That's all day. And then they wonder why the dog's barking at people when they go out and when they come to the house. Do you have that from Dexter, Vic?
Only because Harley, my Romanian rescue, is extremely, well, he was extremely reactive to people coming to the house. And we did a lot of hard work with him on conditioning a mat response when he heard people coming up the driveway, etc. Until about six months ago, we got really, really bad people coming to the house, people just coming past. We live very rurally, so we don't get many visitors and we don't get many deliveries and things. But I watched back on my CCTV, and unfortunately, a delivery driver had actually been banging on the window of his bedroom on purpose and upsetting him. So it set him back a little bit, but when he barks, especially if we're not there to reinforce the behavior that we want, I think Dexter then barks to back him up more than anything. He starts barking. So I'm confident we got there in the past, but this incident hasn't helped him really.
Why do people do that?
I honestly don't know.
I hope you complained.
I did, yeah, and I sent them the delivery company the video as well, because I just said, look, if this video is nowhere near the door, you've had to walk around the outside of the house, and you saw that there was a dog in that room that was scared of you, and then you've proceeded to go to the window and bang on the window and shout at the dog. And now obviously he's petrified of people in high-vis jackets carrying boxes, so that's the next thing to work on for him.
Some people are terrible, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that's it. Are you okay, Vic, if I'm not even asking Freya, I'm just going to do it. If I put it onto our Inner Den group?
Absolutely.
A very big group. But basically, this has been quite a nice little addition to the resource guarding section. I think these videos where it's people talking are better than having to read through loads of stuff and listening to a lecture.
Throwing around ideas as well, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. If it can help somebody, for sure. I think so. Resource guarding, you almost have to flip it on the head of what you think you might do naturally. So like when you say people will come along and try and take a bowl, you don't want to take the bowl, you actually want to give into the bowl, and things like that. You want to do exchanges and things, and we've covered all of that. So I think this is a really helpful video for sure.
I think the problem is a lot of people think, I'm not having my dog do that with me, I'm not having that, I'm the boss around here, and that's where it starts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's because it's a fear of taking things away. If you take things away, you're adding to that fear. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So what you want to do is you want to add things. You want, like Vic said, you want to add something good to the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. And the bottom line is, it's no point guarding anything if nobody else wants it.
Yeah.
So if I don't want that, I couldn't care less about that, and if nobody and no dog, no nothing ever wanted it, would not have its value.
I suppose another thing is prevention's better than cure as well. If you can already teach them because the only trouble we ever have is really food and the cat, so we just have to remove the cat, and that's one of the things we just can't control because the cat winds up. But everything else we we actively taught him to share things, to share his toys, to share this, and and in doing so, we don't seem to have a guarding issue as much, because it would have been before. He would have wanted to keep hold of his toys or whatever, and especially when we had more than one dog in the house, he was pretty bad for it then. But now he's not so bothered. You know what I mean? And I think some of it as well is just watching it because it creeps up on you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right. I'm looking very green.
Let's just started pouring the rain here, so I think I'm getting darker and darker and darker in this house.
Well, what I should do, I shall end it, but I'm going to put it on YouTube as an unlisted. But if you want it for, maybe if you want to use it for any of your clients for resource guarding, because it's been a three-way chat, just ask me, okay?
Oh, brilliant.
Perfect. Thank
All
you.
right. Right, well, thank you for coming, Vic, and thank you very much, Freya. You
Sorry,
help me out on all sorts of things. She's my techie expert.
You're my mentor, sorry.
Well, like I said, I'm normally on my laptop, but to start off with, I was like, where's the button on my phone? I've not got my laptops in the other room. And I was like, oh, I need to join. And now I couldn't work out how to do it on my phone. So lesson learned. I've learned something new today as well. So yeah.
Well, the good thing about it is I know the fact that you're here. I'm just going to stop the recording. Hang on a minute.